If any of that money touched a U.S. bank, even if it was an account in the name of the Venezuelans, it would immediately be seized upon by a number of creditors who eventually we'll have to take care of. But in the short term, that would impede the ability of the Venezuelan authorities to receive the funds they need to operate.
The moment Rubio explains who actually is controlling the funds, the whole argument changes.
Earlier, you testified that the funds are being held short-term in Qatar and then will move to a Treasury-blocked account. What is the statutory authority for the administration relying on Qatar to hold the funds?
It's not our funds. The funds are in an account that's owned and signed. It's an account that belongs to Venezuela, but it has U.S. sanctions as a blocking mechanism on it. And one of the primary reasons why it was in a third country initially, until we could create the mechanism to move it to a U.S. presence, is twofold. One, we have an issue we're working through on recognition. What is exactly, you have to recognize a government, but we don't recognize this government. We recognize the 2015 National Assembly. So we have to find some creative way legally to meet that standard. The other is, frankly, creditors. If any of that money touched a U.S. bank, even if it was an account in the name of the Venezuelans, it would immediately be seized upon by a number of creditors who eventually we'll have to take care of. But in the short term, that would impede the ability of the Venezuelan authorities to receive the funds they need to operate.
So do you have this is what I'm trying to get at, right? Either it's American money, in which case it's subject to the Miscellaneous Receipts Act, and there are all kinds of things that attend to that. You're saying it's Venezuela's money, but it does sound like, according to the EO, according to the president's statements, you are in charge of that money. What authority are you relying on to be in charge, almost in a sort of receivership kind of arrangement, of how funds are both received and expended for a foreign country? Like, wouldn't you have to come to Congress to establish that kind of relationship?
Well,
guys, understand, this is why there are sanctions in place.
No, because the money never enters our hands. We only control the disbursement of the money. We don't control the actual money in the sense of, like, it comes into our bank account.
Do you think that you have somewhere in the statute or the Constitution the authority to control disbursements of a foreign country?
Well, they've agreed to this. And that's the key. They've agreed to this arrangement in which the sanctions that are placed on this oil is what blocks its distribution. So we've agreed to release sanctions and allow the disbursement of the funding as long as they're spending it in a certain way. So I understand it's novel, but it's the best we could come up with in the short term to ensure that they're...
Is there a written agreement that memorializes this?
Yes, I believe there is, and there will have to be one most certainly once we transition that to U.S. accounts.
Secretary, my understanding is the committee doesn't have this agreement.
Well, I can...
If we do or we don't?
Yeah, and you probably wouldn't because it's a Treasury matter. Treasury's handled it, but I can most certainly talk to Treasury about providing you the information.
Also, you're the National Security Advisor, so you do have a role here in coordinating between the departments. So it's not just like you can punt this to Treasury.
Yeah, I just didn't bring the document with me.
I got it. Okay. I just want you to land it and get it to the committee because, look, you're being transparent. I think this is novel. I think it's funky. I think it may not even be permissible. But I don't know until I see the document, and I'd like you to just land it for us, if that's all right.
How did he get this position? Okay. And I'm asking this because he seems not to be fully aware how sanctions work and how legitimate debt works in the United States of America. If that money, exactly what he just said here, if that money hits our shores, there are going to be creditors coming after that money. So if you do want to actually find a way, at least, to get the money to Venezuela in a time where they absolutely need those funds, this is the only smart play here. This is the only way to get them their money where they're going to actually see their money. But understand this, though, this is moderately underhanded here. But I do like the fact that Marco Rubio just stated that the creditors will definitely be taken care of kind of on the back end here, guys, right? But initially, they need to get the money so they can kind of rebuild their country.
Has there largely been a broad support across Latin America for Maduro's removal?
Yes.
And is the United States better off with Nicolas Maduro in custody?
Yes, and Venezuela too.
Right. I realize that you'll hear differing views during this hearing, but I want to at least offer my personal congratulations to you and everybody who helped carry this out, because the world is better off without Nicolas Maduro. A few weeks ago, you briefed the Senate on your three-phase plan. You've been talking about it here today on stabilization, recovery, and the transition in Venezuela. Is there anything this Congress can do to be helpful in executing on that plan?
There will be in time, there's no doubt about it. On the stabilization front, in order to stabilize it, for example, we're going to have to begin to provide some licenses through OFAC. So as an example, if a company wants to go down and explore the opportunity to do some economic activity in Venezuela, they will require a license from Treasury to be able to do that. And so that doesn't require congressional action, but I wanted you to be aware of it when you start to see some of these things. Some of these are just exploratory. The second is, I think in time, look, Venezuela is a very wealthy country. This is not a country that's going to require money from the United States to rebuild, to stabilize, to transition. It really isn't. It has the ability to be, and it has been historically, the wealthiest country in the Western in Latin and South America, in many cases. The problem is that the wealth of the country was being stolen. And so part of both the recovery and the transition phase is ensuring that you leave in place a prosperous, free, democratic, allied with the United States and friendly, but also prosperous Venezuela, where the resources of the country are being done responsibly, are being utilized responsibly and to the benefit of the people and their economy. So in time, I imagine we will be coming back to you with specific legislation that may be required to assist in that function. But we don't expect that this is going to require any spending on our part. On the contrary, unlike many of the other parts of the world we've gotten involved, Venezuela we're not spending any money in Venezuela right now other than whatever it costs to stand up our embassy.
Let me switch gears on you a little bit. One of the common criticisms after Maduro's capture was that this would incentivize communist China to take similar actions in Taiwan. In my opinion, this couldn't be further from the truth. For starters, communist China doesn't care about international law or norms. They've demonstrated that repeatedly. Just ask the Philippines.
That's a fair
Nor
assessment.
does it believe in international law even applies to Taiwan. But most importantly, Xi Jinping's calculus on whether to take kinetic action against Taiwan rests solely on whether or not he believes he will be successful or not. In this sense, the tactical proficiency displayed during Operation Absolute Resolve may have actually given Xi more pause to take than in taking action in Taiwan. Because despite its massive military buildup, the PLA continues to lack the experience so clearly on display that the United States demonstrated in Maduro's capture. And the PLA leaders that do have combat experience, like General Zhang, just got purged, or at least one of them did. So, Secretary Rubio, do you believe that the operation to take Maduro into custody will have any impact on Communist China's actions or intentions toward Taiwan?
No, look, the situation on Taiwan is a G legacy project that he's made very clear that that's what he intends to do. And that's going to be irrespective of anything that happens in the world. Your point, though, is well taken, and that is the U.S. in conducting this operation, I think, was certainly startling to China, to Russia, to Iran, to any adversary around the world, because the U.S. is the only country in the world that could have done this operation.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just real briefly, I just mentioned General Zhang getting purged here. He was obviously a very important official in China. Can you share with us just your assessment on what that means, that Xi just purged one of these?
Well, this is, I think, part of a pattern we've seen over the last few years, which is a purge of leaders in their military. They're spending a lot of money on their military, and obviously some of these guys are stealing that money, and they're trying to address that. So it's an issue internally in their system. They're obviously not sharing with us or talking to us in depth about any of that, but it's certainly something we watch with interest.
So yeah, by default here, Venezuela does not technically need our money. They are an incredibly rich country, and the money that was being held in Qatar was theirs, right? But obviously they had no access to their own funds here. They do need that money. That is their money. So in my head, Xi Jinping definitely 100% saw what happened to Maduro and was like, yeah, guys, you're not going to do that to me, are you? That's like how it played out in my head, at least here. Now, with China and Taiwan, they don't even think that they're not China, if that makes any sense here, guys, right? So in terms of like international law, let's say, yeah, would they even care? The only thing that's keeping China out of Taiwan is a mix of us in that region, right? Along with Japan, but mainly Japan, because Japan has been threatening China for a little while now, kind of, making sure they don't do anything absolutely crazy here. And why does China want Taiwan? First of all, this is like a stain on their record, if that makes any sense here. They kind of want them back because they were there, but then they left, and it's like a stain on their record, if that makes any sense here. It's a pride thing to kind of get them back, at least. Japan has made all these absolutely crazy threats here, and Taiwan is also known for making a gigantic amount of chips, all right, that we need in everything that we're doing these days here, guys, right? So, like, if China gets Taiwan, that will not be amazing for us. I'm just going to hope that never happens, truth be told here. Mainly because of the chips that are being manufactured there. They're going to get a gigantic, huge leg up if they were to actually take Taiwan. And I'm not sure they need, better manufacturing, guys. I'm just going to be honest here. You guys all have an absolutely amazing day. If you guys are new here, please like and subscribe. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and catch you guys later.